You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk. It's a podcast. It's a magazine. No, it's a podzine.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Podzine, dated 14th of April 2008. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another Podzine. Now, we've got a real smorgasbord of a show for you this week. Good variety, and let's have a quick look of what we've got coming through the show. Well, first of all, our roving reporter, Andy Ayers, has been to interview a celebrity up at Snowdon. We've also got John Hee telling us all about how the campaign to legalise wild camping in England and Wales is going on. And we also speak to Andy Ayers, who runs Green Outdoor, and they tell us about a new range of outdoor products made from recycled materials. So it's a fairly sort of environmentally friendly show this week. But first, let's have a look at some of the emails that have been coming in. We've had a few things come through. First of all, I've got a bit of clarification to make. I made a mistake. Well, I didn't fully explain myself probably last week for Bushcraft magazine. When we said that there were 2 weeks available with Lars Felt. Now, he's the sort of guru of everything bushcraft. But this is the note I had in from Ian, anyway, from Bushcraft magazine, so I just thought I'd read it to you and clarify. You mentioned that you were not sure if you'd pronounced Lars Felt correctly. Well, the course is run by Lars Felt on the bushcraft side, and the master smith at Gransfors is Lars Ananda. You only mentioned Lars Ananda in the podcast, but not Lars Felt, and we could really do with Lars Felt being mentioned. So there you go. I've mentioned it now. That's for those two sort of 10-day events that they're running, 8th of June and the 3rd of August, and that is, he says, hunting through his paper, over in Sweden. But there's more information from bushcraftmagazine.co.uk, or you can just email them at expedition@bushcraftmagazine.co.uk for more details. So I hope I've sorted out any confusion on that score. What else have we got? Well, of course, we're also announcing the winner of our fabulous Olympus 850 SW camera. We've got another competition bubbling under as well, which is equally interesting, and we'll keep you on your toes. But first, let's touch on a couple of things going on. We've had some emails. Well, we had an email back in February, actually, from Steve Riley, and it reads like this. Hi, Bob, Rose, Andy, and the crew. I just wanted to thank you for your superb podcast you've been putting out over the last couple of years. My fiancée Stephanie and I are to marry in May, and we have been inspired to walk the coast-to-coast route for our honeymoon and for charity. This is almost entirely your fault, and I thank you for it. And that was from Steve and Steffi. And then we also received another note just this week, which is, hi Bob and Rose, thanks for your support. It's really is very heartwarming. We've been working hard to get ourselves up to speed on walking a couple of 100 miles and get the wedding sorted out at the same time. We've decided to bottle it and get a company called Packhorse to book and carry our heavy stuff from B&B to B&B. It looks a bit lame compared to your exploits on the TGO challenge, and my brother has been a real star and set up a website. The website is www.steveandsteph spelt STEFF.com for putting the ubiquitous blog online and asking for donations. Now, first of all, Steve and Steph, it's your honeymoon, so don't start comparing it to things we went through on the TGO challenge. You make of it what you will and make sure you have a fabulous time. And if that's the way you want to do it, that's fine by me. But you very generously have organised donations to be made to two charities you're supporting: Bolton's Women's Aid, which is a refuge for domestic violence up in Bolton, and Christie's Hospital, which is one of the leading European cancer research and treatment centres based in Manchester. So obviously we'd like to give them as much support as we can. I'm sure you'll enjoy their blog and exploits they go through for their honeymoon walking across Scotland. And to repeat that email address, website address again, it's www.steveandsteph.com. Now, we also have another one. Now, Richard Harding, you remember I spoke to Richard Harding, I suppose a couple of weeks ago now, who was cycling back to New Zealand. Of course, he set off on the 29th of March, a few days ago, and I've been keeping an eye on his blog, and I thought I'd just read a couple of the days out to you, because I think it makes for good reading. Okay, day 1, 29th of March. Train was delayed by 4 hours, but that's okay, I can live with that. I'm on Richard time now and only have to 32 kilometres to cycle today, so no pressure. I arrive in Whitby in the dark, pouring rain and wind blowing off the moors. Ah, perfect cycling weather. I bag a couple of pictures, then head off to Scarborough, expecting to arrive at the youth hostel before 10 o'clock, as the doors closed. After riding through some of the worst weather a cyclist can get, I arrive in Scarborough at midnight. No chance of any accommodation now, so I grab a pizza and push on looking for somewhere safe and hidden to put the tarp up and hunker down for a few hours. Not sure of the time, but spend a night shivering to keep warm, not prepared to use my sleeping bag as that must stay dry. Woke up at sunup and checked the trip on the bike, 120 kilometres. Anyway, that was day 1, as I said, an easy day, and they say there are no adventures left in the UK. So that was his first day, bless him. Let's move on to day 4. Now, of course, you can keep up with him on his website, so make sure you do that. That's giftme.biz, giftme.biz. Day 4, windy, very windy, reduced to a crawl. But to cheer me up, a little, it started to rain. A lot. Yes, all day, to be fair, but once I'd headed east, the wind was behind me, or it might have been my tea. Hey? Had my first strange food of the trip. Not sure what it's called, but snot and garlic in a sausage type of thing. It was all vegetables, and I'm sure something must have died to make something that strange. Have enjoyed Holland, camped by the River Vaal tonight again. Very nice. Across the border in the morning to Germany. Here we come. Day 6. Rain, rain, rain. Tell you, it's mad ducks and Englishmen come out in the pouring rain. Crossed into Germany and the sun came out and all was lovely. Okay, back to the truth. More rain. The German border was not there. I must have crossed it, but no signs. Talking of which, if you ever follow the Rhine route, a couple of things to watch out for are signs that point you in 3 different directions at once. Remember, we're following a river here, and the ones that point you to the lock gates, they are rather good. My advice is ignore the signs and trust your map. Also, if you're thinking about cycling the Rhine route, think carefully about not doing the lower half, as it's called the route of industrial culture, so it's factories and power stations, not the thing when you go the other way. Stopped at a nice B&B, no campsites in the heart of industrial land, had my first German beer and slept well. Day 6. A day of firsts. First brushed with the law, first puncture, first new tyre, and first to switch on the GPS. I'm really glad I did not get one of those GPS trackers. You would have seen me going round and round trying to get out of Duisburg. It was during this time I met up with a German constabulary, halted in the street and asked for my passport. Then he told me that if he caught me riding on the cycle path the wrong way again, he would fine me €15. I tried to explain in Germany we were lucky just to get a cycle path on one side of the road. He again reminded me that we are in Germany and we do it this way. Yeah, so yes sir, and I crossed the road. Something about lack of humour, methinks, I remember. At 48 kilometres, got a puncture, changed the tube and the tyre and has a split in it. Getting cold now and they're forecasting snow this week. GPS was called into service today to get me out of Duisburg and got totally geographically embarrassed and need help. Used my lighter to solder up my phone charger. Well impressed I was too. This is not the charger that we built, it was the one I bought. Anyway, so that was day 6. So on to day 9. Now, so far he's done 717 kilometres. Now south of Koblenz. This was the 6th of April. Now south of Koblenz in a place called Bray. I took yesterday off and it rained all day. I'm battling to keep things dry. It is rare that it has been dry for more than an hour at a time. The campsite I'm in is nice and sells a nice brew. Koningsbasher, I think, Koningsbasher. My average mileage is down on what I planned, but not so much. I am okay. Sorry, my reading. On what I planned, but not too much, so I'm okay with that, as I will still hit my visas, as they're the real targets that can't be let slip. Found out today that Nick had hurt his leg again, will be in crutches for another month, and this has really made me homesick. On the upside, I put my bike through its 4,000 kilometre mark today, 1,000 kilometres more, and I'll need the first oil change. This morning, I woke up to snow. So the reason I read that out was I got the feeling Richard could do with a little bit of a lift, so by all means, pop to his website, giftme.biz. Make a donation if you feel you're able to, but if not, do drop him an email. There's an email address there to tell him to cheer up and that you're thinking of him, enjoying his blog, and that will inspire him, because the poor guy's had, 9 days of solid rain, so understandably, I bet he's a bit cheesed off. Now, talking about another blog that is already up and running, but this one will be quite interesting as well. Again, it's again for charity. Is Mick and Gail will be starting their Land's End to John O'Groats walk, and they're starting tomorrow, Tuesday the 16th. So they're doing it in benefit of Macmillan Cancer Support, and the website is Gailbird, spelt Gayle, bird.blogspot.com. That's gailbird.blogspot.com. Gail is a very, very entertaining writer. It's an enjoyable blog. They've gone into a lot of detail of preparation and planning for the trip. So I'm just saying, if you get this in time, wish you well on your trip. We'll be dipping into your blog as time goes by, and I hope you have an enjoyable walk from Land's End to John O'Groats. So people around the world that want to escape from the desk for a short while, there's 3 different blogs there for you to have a look at. Gail's, Richard's, and the previous one from Steve and Steph, to allow you to escape for a cup of coffee when you get bored at work and want to see what everybody else is doing in the outdoors. Right, well that's the start of it. Blimey, I've been going on a long one on that one. Let's now first speak to Andy Hull. Andy Hull went up to Snowdon just recently and spoke to a celebrity. The celebrity is of course Pete Norton, who runs Pete's Eats Cafe in Llanbedris, and that's been catering for both locals and visitors for over 30 years.
I'm speaking to you from the small Welsh town of Llanberis that sits underneath the shadow of Mount Snowdon in the Snowdonian National Park. Back in the early 80s, life here was quite difficult, the area ravaged by the collapse of manufacturing industry and by the ending of the construction phase of the Dinorwic power station, which had employed many local young people. There was talk then of a new future based on tourism, but few, locals or visitors alike, really thought that this had the power to transform the local economy. But today, Llanberis does indeed sit at the heart of a thriving and diverse outdoor tourism industry, and I'm here to meet one of those pioneering businesses that made a big difference. Indeed, any of you that have visited this part of the world are almost certain to have popped through its doors at some time or another. Yes, I'm here to meet Pete Norton, the man behind the legend that is Pete's Eats Cafe. Now, Pete, each year we ask our listeners who they'd like us to interview during the year, and this year I think more people than anybody else said, we'd like you to talk to Pete at Pete's Eats, which is quite extraordinary for an audience that is interested in the latest gear and interested in the latest outdoor exploits. It's some achievement, that.
That's quite an honour, isn't it? Yeah, I've been here 30 years now, and I can honestly say I still really enjoy what I do. It's great.
Now, 30 years, that's a long time. One of the pioneering outdoor tourist-related businesses, I guess. How on earth did you get to Llanberis in the first place?
I came here with my ex-wife Vicky in 1978. We'd been living and working in London. Before that, we'd been in college and on the dole in Sheffield. I used to come up here sort of with the school, and then as a climber and walker, and we just really wanted to work together.
And so, a cafe, had you been in catering before?
No, but we had sort of 2 very clear ideas. The first was to provide the sort of place that we would like to visit. I mean, in my time, I've been thrown out of so many places for being wet or scruffy or whatever, or because I'd finished my drink. And the second thing was just the old hippie value, really, of treating people as you want to be treated yourself. So you respect your staff, you respect your customers and give them a good deal, and you pay your suppliers on time. It's not hard, and it's just a good way to be, really.
Now, lots of people have got cause to be grateful, certainly when they come in dripping with water and mud as we do. It's interesting how the outdoor world has given Llanberis really a new lease of life, isn't it? We were just talking earlier about Llanberis 20, 30 years ago, which was quite a depressed place as manufacturing industry collapsed, and you were telling me that most of the jobs really on the high street here are directly related to tourism now. That was something I think that was hard to imagine 20, 30 years ago.
Well, there's been a long history of tourism in the valley, because there was sort of mule rides up Snowdon back in the 1800s or 1900s, I think, and there's always been the railway, of course. I think that the big power station project which ran through the 70s actually did tourism so much damage in the village because there was such big money to be earned and all the businesses could make easy money without reinvesting. And by the time that the power stations finished in sort of the mid-80s, the whole tourist infrastructure had been wiped away, and it's been quite hard to rebuild it again. But there's climbing was always a feature of North Wales, and the easier climbing was always in Ogwen, but the hard climbing scene, you know, with like people like Brown and Willans, has always been in this valley.
Yeah, and now, of course, the business has expanded in the way in which the outdoors-related tourism has expanded as well, isn't it? I mean, do you have any idea how many people you get through the doors each year?
Not a clue. Some people come through more than once, obviously. But sort of the cafes really is quite a strange place because a large proportion of our customers are actually local, but often they just come and have a cup of tea, or even they don't just come and read the paper for nothing, which never bothers us. You know, we see well over 100 people now, if people sort of are friendly, sit close. And we've never asked anyone to leave, however long they've been in here. You know, we've had people in here 13 hours on more than one occasion, and that's fine because they make us look busy.
Now, it's quite unusual, I think, to find a business in an area like this that's just as well loved by the locals as it is by tourists. That's obviously something that comes from being here for 30 years or so. But it's also important, you were saying earlier, in relation to expanding the business as well.
I think so. We've just heard that we're likely to get a large grant from the Welsh Assembly to develop a building across the road. We hope to be doing a high-class hostel for about 36 people and a small cinema and a cafe bar. I think that we also had a grant when we expanded the cafe in 2002, and we're pretty positive about this new development. We think it'll go ahead shortly.
Now, you've expanded well beyond the first cafe, which was just set on the corner, and the business, every time I come in here, seems to have added something new. So take us through the whole range of things that you've got in this building now.
Well, the cafe sits about 100 people. We can squeeze a few more in. Upstairs we have a sort of meeting room which is free. Adult education classes use it, as do the local guides for briefing, and people just sit around reading the magazines and books which are there. There's a map room. It's a reference library, and it's mainly made up of maps that people give us. I think we've got about 600 now, very eclectic collection. There's a shower which you can use for a couple of quid, and on the top floor there's a flat for 12 people, which again offers good quality but cheap accommodation. And yeah, that's about what we do really.
And of course there's the famous free jukebox, which has just kicked in as we've been talking.
Oh yeah, it's the little things that you do really which say welcome to people. You know, it costs us quite a few pounds to run the jukebox each year, but I think it's nice, and again we can have an eclectic collection of music on it, which if people were paying they would never put on.
No, also, for people that haven't been here, it's difficult to think of outdoor people who wouldn't have been here, but I mean the walls are absolutely jam-packed full of adverts and posters from everything from hill walking courses to climbing events to music events. You know, this really does feel now as if it's the centre of a big community, centre of a local community, but also very much a centre of a community that maybe comes together only 2 or 3 times a year, but it's very, very important.
Well, yes, I mean, we certainly do have regular customers. They might be regular, like 3 times a day, as is John the farmer, or they might be regular that once every 2 years, whenever they come to North Wales or come in, you get to recognise the faces over the year. And when I'm travelling, you know, I can be in Greece or Morocco or somewhere, and quite often I'll bump into people who know me or know the cafe. We certainly get write-ups abroad as well as in this country.
Of course, you came here because you like climbing and you like walking, and there's, I mean, on the website you've got walking routes and things like that, which is quite nice. Do you ever get out much into the hills now?
Yeah. The last 2 years I spent a lot of time taking pictures of the beaches around here. Within an hour's drive of the cafe there are actually over 100 different beaches, which many surprise me how beautiful they are.
It's great. So, I mean, you said you really wanted a different lifestyle and you wanted to escape the rat race in London. You talked earlier about it being about the hippie values. But, I mean, has it worked out, has it? I mean, this is a lifestyle that is pretty good.
Well, I'm really very fortunate because I do have quite a bad mood disorder, and sometimes I'm quite ill. I've spent over a year of the last 10 in acute psychiatric care, but the people around me look after me really well, and I feel like I can contribute strongly to the community in which I live.
Well, that's fantastic, and they look after you, which I guess means that you really have now become well entrenched in the local community. It's fantastic. On behalf of all the hill walkers coming, I'd like to say thanks, and best of luck for all the new ventures in the future.
Thank you very much.
Well, there's no doubt that Pete's Eats is a very special place, valued just as much by the locals of Llanberis than it is by the visitors who flock here to take advantage of the great outdoors. And if you haven't yet been to Pete's, well, it's almost worth arranging a special excursion to Snowdonia just to step inside those doors and to experience that warm welcome. Not to mention to sample those amazing plates of food, to perhaps drink one or two of those famous mugs of tea. Yes, there really is no place quite like Pete's Eats.
The Podzine.
Due to the amount of material I've got to get through on today's show, I'm going to keep it short and not do a diary section, but just to remind you to have a look at the diary section and the links page over at theoutdoorstation.co.uk. There's been lots of fresh entries. Anyway, back to Andy Howell at The Outdoor Show this year.
Over the last few months, some of the outdoor bloggers have been winding up a campaign to make wild camping in England and Wales legal, in the same sense that wild camping is not only legal but encouraged in Scotland. And fronting the campaign to some extent is my fellow blogger John Hee, and John's here today to tell us all about it. John, I think a lot of people are kind of aware that you have to be sensitive about wild camping and that it's kind of tolerated, but I think a lot of people would be surprised to think that actually it might even be illegal.
Yes, indeed, Andy. We were somewhat surprised when we started digging into it, and I think really the statutory changes in Scotland a couple of years ago certainly made people in England and Wales look at the situation. And what up till then, for many years, they'd been doing quite legitimately, or at least they believe so, they suddenly found was the legal position, for want of a better word, was not quite what it was. One of our supporters, in actual fact, completed Land's End of John O'Groats going to find out that much of the accommodation he'd been using out in the wilds, he shouldn't have been using at all. And there's an upstanding member of the community, he was somewhat worried about the way it had been.
Now, I guess the real concern about that is that while, in most cases people turn a blind eye to something if you do it reasonably sensibly and responsibly, I guess the reality is if you don't have legal rights, at some point some landowner or somebody can suddenly restrict, whole acres of land and space. We think about Madonna and the way she's tried to close the footpaths. So, the campaign started through Darren's petition, which is sitting on the Number 10 website. How many people have signed it up to now, John?
Up to before I came to this show, I believe there was in the region of 800 signatories. If I can explain, the purpose of the e-petition is not necessarily to make wild camping legal. It's to raise the debate in public over what people can and can't do, and to see whether the organisations, the outdoor organisations, the outdoor communities themselves, this is not just walkers, by the way, this is kayakers, bushcraft people, fishermen, for instance, whether there is sufficient grassroots interest to actually tackle this issue. Are people getting thrown off the land, for instance, or, as most wild campers will happily admit, we take a non-confrontational stance. We will slip into a place, we will camp, we will be out before dawn, and you'd never know we'd been there. So let's make this clear. We're not talking about parties by the roadside and burning fires and of driftwood or old caravans in lay-bys, things like that. We're talking about practicing sensible, safe, environmentally aware conditions, in that we would be away from the roads, and we would, as the John Muir says, take only pictures, leave only footprints, and we'd follow much of the existing Scottish code, which has already had to look at this situation, and largely speaking has been implemented extremely well with very few issues.
Now, one of the things the petition does, it refers to Scotland, but rather importantly, it talks about people enjoying the same rights and the same responsibilities as people in Scotland do, and that's very important, because in a sense, as this campaign begins to wind up, obviously we have to think about those issues, and there are many places, I mean, Pyrenees National Park, which is dear to my heart, that encourages wild camping away from the road, only overnight, but it does so because that's actually quite an important part of the attraction. So it's worth money to the local economy, and we can't stress enough, can we, the fact that we're not talking about encouraging hordes and hordes of drunken youths to come trotting down and camp in the Ogren Valley. We're talking about something that is really almost a fundamental right, in that we've now got the new access legislation, so that's made a big difference to the hills. Why can't we just quietly slip away and camp overnight?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my main interest is in wild camping in the Lake District, and I'm the sort of person who will do it solo, and if I see another tent, I will keep walking until I'm out of sight of them, giving them the peace and quiet, the isolation they'd like, and the same with me. However, if you were to draw a line south of North Wales to the Wash, much of that land is not only privately owned, like most land, it's also agricultural land. And except for Dartmoor, there are no national parks in this country that actively encourage wild camping. Now, it's interesting you say about the green pound issue. We may not be spending lots of money on overnight accommodation, but we pop up in small villages, the little post office, all little out-the-way places, not the Amblesides, but the Langdales, and we're pumping money into that economy because we will eat the local food, we will use the pubs, we will buy stuff from the shops. So we are very aware that we need to fit in to the environment, we need to fit into the areas, but all we're asking for is say, hey, let's have a. Why could Dartmoor, for instance, National Park organisation, see it as a very positive move to attract people? But many other national parks, for instance the New Forest one, not only positively discourage it, but almost seem to treat any sort of camping as a commercial cash cow.
I mean, I think that's it, isn't it? I mean, I often get the impression that a lot of this restriction is about trying to encourage you to use official campsites and official facilities. And the point about this is it about a right? It's about a right of access, because even if we're enjoying our wild camping and we're out for a couple of nights or even overnight on the hill, the chances are we're going to nip down to a cafe and have a decent breakfast the next morning.
Yeah, and the very, very important thing is that it's about rights. There are no rights without responsibilities, and we don't intend to shove this e-petition down people's throats. What we're asking is, it's time to have a debate to actually get the outdoor community and those organisations we look to, like the Ramblers Association, the National Trust, the Country Landowners Association, all the interested parties, to start to consider the use that's being made of the land and the responsible way in which most normal wild campers will approach it.
Okay, well, good luck for that. And if people listening want to hear more about the campaign, there's a website, of course, as there always is these days. How can they find out about it, John?
Okay, I won't give the government website because it's quite a convoluted one, but typically you would go on to the government website, you would fill in your name and address, and I must stress you must be a UK resident or a serving member of the armed forces. you will then get sent an email which you click on to confirm, and that's your vote done. And the quickest way to find out what's going on with the campaign is to go to the campaign website where the latest news is, and that's www.legalisewildcamping.com.
Okay, so if you can't remember that, you put legalise wild camping into Google and you'll find your way there. And that gives you all the details as to how to find the actual petition itself. Well, thanks very much for John, and good luck for the future. And just to repeat again, just in case anybody's misunderstood, this is about starting a debate about how we open up our rights of access in a responsible way. And I look forward to that, because there's no doubt access legislation has had a big impact on the countryside. And, you know, it's, 50 years since the Kinver trespass, 100 years since the first right of roam access was somebody tried to introduce it in Parliament, and we still don't have full access to those hills. And in the 21st century, that seems to me to be just plain crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree, Andy, and I think this is a good time after the Crow Act in the UK and the Scottish change to pick the stone up, look underneath it, and to quietly put it back once we understand what we're looking at.
Okay, well, good luck, John, and I look forward to seeing how the campaign develops, and no doubt we'll talk again about it in the future.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Well, next we're going to have a chat with Andy Ayers from greenoutdoor.co.uk, who I met at the kayak show earlier on in the year when they had their display outside of the main exhibition. And when I got chatting to him, he told me about the range of new products they're working on, which are made entirely from recycled materials. And interestingly, when you consider the fact we all like to have our fairly green credentials in the outdoors world, there are very few, if any, tents made from recycled materials.
Essentially, we were both myself and my partner were both outdoorsy type people, but spotted the sort of the chronic irony of the fact that the majority of the products that we use to help us enjoy the outdoors, our tents, our clothing, and what have you, is manufactured in ways that are damaging to the environment. And so we were inspired to try and come up with a product range and manufacture a range of products which, as far as is possible, were kinder to the environment than what was currently available.
It seems unique in this day and age, really, when you think about it, and actually really do think about it, that the fact there is so little presented to us on a recycled front.
Yes, and it has to be said, it's not easy. And when you go back to to the source of these products, and you try and come up with with environmentally friendly alternatives, then it's a big challenge, because currently the demand isn't is lagging behind, so it takes some research and development and some concerted effort to bring these products to market.
Well, fair play to you for doing so. And no doubt it's not come out of nowhere. You've been working on this for some time. But we're outside the Canoe Expo at the moment. I can see half a dozen tents, all of which are, I'm sure, going to have a lot of interest, if nothing else, from the crowds of people that are looking at them at the moment. Just take me quickly through the range, if you would, and obviously the materials and the recycled part of the actual products.
All of our products are essentially available in one of two fabric choices. The lighter weight polyester models that we do are made entirely from a recycled polyester fabric, which is then also has a waterproof coating applied to it, which is also made entirely from recycled materials. The only in our polyester range, the only two parts of the tent which are currently not made from recycled materials is the ground sheets and the zips, which we've as yet been unable to source economical environmental alternatives for. The second fabric that we do is a natural hemp cotton canvas, which is designed to sort of preserve the traditional look and feel of a lot of, which is appropriate for many of the models that we're doing. But we use a hemp in with the cotton because it's a much more naturally sustainable material. It grows very well naturally in abundance, but also it's much more durable. than straight cotton, and also produces a slightly softer canvas, which we find it gives a very nice sort of desirable to the touch. The range of tents that we do are begin with our teepee, our fairly sizable teepee.
Yeah, it's attracting a lot of interest.
That's a 6-person teepee. Our aim with that was really to take the traditional teepee design, but to turn it into a modern tent, and to introduce the sort of comfort levels and the sort of features that people are used to with modern tents into the but with the attractiveness of a traditional teepee design. So our teepee comes with complete with an inner tent with a fully sewn-in ground sheet, but also with multiple ventilation and windows and things that people are looking for. It also comes with a dining canopy which extends out from the front opening to give you an additional cooking area out in front of the tent.
I mean, I can see that without question, that being a very, very popular family tent. There's a lot to do with the aesthetics of it, really. It's just, it has something, an air of getting out and enjoying the countryside about it. It's subtle. It's that hemp material is a brown, a light brown material which will blend in very nicely with the environment, and I could see that popping up in campsites everywhere.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Well, I mean, we were talking about it was about £400, you'd say?
It's $499, but that includes the inner tent and the extending dining shelter.
Yeah, I mean that's comparable easily, isn't it?
Our aim was to try and produce it at an under the £500 mark, essentially, which we thought was enough to bring that kind of this kind of tent into the mainstream. Pulling away from the teepee being a specialist tent for people with a lot of money, but bringing a high quality, comfortable teepee into the sort of financial range of your sort of average family.
Yeah, and I certainly think introducing it here at the kayak show has been definitely a very wise move. Can I just move you across from that big teepee to the small one, because the small one's got itself a certain little fan club that's growing around it?
It's my personal favourite, just because of the sort of the natural beauty which I think it has, and the appeal that brings with the combination of the natural canvas and the sort of the sort of pyramid design. It's where we started in many ways, and it's a bit of an eco flagship in as much as it actually uses bamboo for its poles and for its pegs, as well as the natural fabric. But by running the poles up the outside of the structure, we also create a very large usable space inside the tent.
Oh, so there's no centre pole then?
There's no centre pole, no. Which means that the interior space, is actually adequate sleeping capacity for 4 people, even though it's a relatively small and compact tent.
I can see these. Let's just mention the website first of all, so people can actually, if they're listening to this at this moment in time, can go straight to the website and say, what the hell are they talking about?
The web address is www.greenoutdoor.co.uk.
Lovely. Now, moving on to the 2 green tents, which is the recycled polyester, yeah?
Yes, the 2 green tents that we see there are both made from our recycled polyester fabric, again, which is, like I say, it's coated with a waterproof coating, which is also derived from recycled materials. The only 2 things on the polyester tents which are not currently made from recycled materials are the ground sheets and the zips. The little canoe shelter, both of the models that you see here, in fact, are quick pitch models. They're both designed so that they can be pitched either with, say, canoe paddles or walking poles, or if you want to take additional poles with you, then standard off-the-shelf camping poles will also fit both models. The idea being that they will pack down very small and very light, because if you happen to be you use simply what you have with you, or stuff that you can find in your environment to pitch them.
And can I just to bring you over here to this one, which is much more, I'd say sort of, it's got a out of Africa sort of feel to it. How would you describe that particular tent?
This is our large campfire tent, which was inspired by stories of the late great Bill Mason, who favoured this kind of design of tent in his canoe trips. This is somewhat larger than the sort of thing that he would have used, and again we've upgraded it to the sort of spec of a modern tent. So we've incorporated sewn-in ground sheets and a full inner tent. and added ventilation and windows, to make it a more comfortable affair for say, a family camping or group camping.
Well, I wish you well with the range of products and the stage you're at. You're obviously just sort of introducing the company and introducing the products to the UK audience. What has the feedback been like here at the show?
It's been great, and I think we've met an awful lot of people who are just very inspired and and sort of reassured, I think, by the fact that there are companies out there that are fighting to make these products more environmental. Some people were surprised to find that actually the majority of the kit that they're buying is damaging to the environment, and that's one of the most important messages to get out there. That people don't realise that the sorts of environmental damage that is being done, in the manufacture of the kit that they're using, because most of these people love the outdoors, and so they don't want to see anything being done to it that's going to damage it or jeopardise its future.
Well, last week, as you probably will remember, we had a competition to win a fabulous new Olympus 850 SW camera, worth about £200, courtesy of Olympus. Thank you very much indeed, Olympus. We do have another camera to give away later on in the season. The question for the competition was, what are the pixel dimensions of an 8-megapixel camera? This camera is, of course, an 8-megapixel camera, and the correct answer is 3,264 by 2,448. As you might expect, we had, just 100 entries, which is a phenomenal amount of entries, really, for the competitions as they go. So there is a 1 in 100 chance of winning this camera. And what we do is we put it all into the machine, and it randomly pulls out the winner's name. So they're all in, we've pressed the buttons, and let's see who has won a fabulous brand new Olympus 850 SW camera. And the answer is Sassy Clark. Congratulations, Sassy Clark from Cambridge. You have won yourself a Olympus camera, and that will be going off to you this week, so you should have it sometime this week. So congratulations on that front. Now let's move on to this week's competition. Well, as we're keeping in sort of with the green theme and the environmental theme, we had a press release this week from GoLight announcing that they've signed agreement with DSV Logistics, enabling distribution throughout Europe. Basically, it means that they're distributing the goods pretty well next day anywhere in 70% of Europe, apparently. And of course, GoLight have got a great commitment to GoLight on the planet. They're very much following their environmental policies at the moment, and wanting to tread lightly in every aspect. So to celebrate the fact that they've signed this new agreement, and also to keep with their green credentials, they've given us a tent to give away, a Utopia 2 tent, the details of which are just in front of me here. Basically, it's a freestanding tarp. If you can imagine that, it's basically a twin arch pole which slips inside a sort of a tarp frame and gives you coverage for 2 to 3 people, weighing in total at about 1,200 grams, and valued at £190. So I have a 2-man freestanding tarp tent to give away. And the competition question is, over on the GoLight website, GoLight on the Planet, they mention a mountain, which, if it, sadly, if the things keep going the way they are at the moment, it's predicted that all the snows from this mountain will be gone by 2015. By any measure, Earth is at the tipping point, quite rightly too. So GoLight on the Planet, as they say. What I want to know is the name of the mountain. What is the name of the mountain they mention in their GoLight on the Planet section, which has snows which are predicted to be gone by 2015? And what I'd like you to do is drop me an email, and please make sure you give me all your details, the number of people that answer the question and don't give me the name and address, to GoLight-competition@theoutdoorstation.co.uk. That's GoLight-competition@theoutdoorstation.co.uk, and you could win yourself a £200 freestanding new Utopia 2 Go Light Tarp Tent. So that's the show for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've had a lot to get through, and we've gone to 44 minutes. So thanks very much for listening. Do stay tuned. Do enter our competitions. Do visit the website and have a look at the links and the diary page, and do add your name and where you're listening on the Frapper map if you would. Until next week, have a good week, and take care. All the best now. Bye.
This independent programme has been brought to you by theoutdoorsStation.co.uk.